Lightning McQueen, X. Thomas the Tank Engine. Smut. By Dripping Insanity. Part 1. Green means go. Thomas the Tank Engine was working a late night shift at the local 24/7 sex shop. He slumped over the counter and rested his head on the cash register, which was covered in sultry pictures of cars. "I'm so bored. I'm going to rust at this rate. At least there are 20 minutes left of my shift." Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a sports car with a rat ass lingering in aisle 69. Thomas decided to offer this mysterious beauty some assistance, both out of obligation and curiosity. Anything I can help you with?" Thomas asked timidly. The car whipped his head around, and instantly Thomas felt his engine flutter and throb with lust. The handsome customer in front of him was none other than Lightning McQueen. Lightning McQueen was an intimidating car. He had a smoldering good look, power, wealth, and prestige. Thomas tugged at his skimpy maid outfit, suddenly embarrassed. He couldn't seem to peel his eyes away from McQueen's sculpted lips. "Well, aren't you a dainty tank engine?" McQueen trailed off, his eyes descending gently to Thomas's décolletage. "I actually do need some help finding a mahogany arm spreader, a gas mask, and a spanking horse. I'm new to this area, so I haven't had the privilege of getting myself familiar with the treasures this shop has in store." He laughed and shot him with a smirk, his blue eyes twinkling. They're just over here." As Thomas navigated McQueen through the aisles of BDSM equipment, he could feel his thong riding up his crotch, making him feel even more flustered. "This is our finest arm spreader," Thomas explained, gesturing with his wheels. "Are the belts leather? How much weight can they support?" He was taken aback by McQueen's astutity. "Of course, the belts are true leather. It can support the weight of any transportation vehicle, so it's very versatile." "So I suppose this baby could support your weight as well," McQueen said. Thomas was stunned. Lightning McQueen, fucking Lightning motherfucking McQueen, was flirting with him. He continued, "Don't be shy. With a body like that, I could give you the world." He winked and revved up his engine. Smoke billowed from Thomas's smokestack, and he could feel the heat rising in his engine. He nodded coyly and proceeded to the checkout with McQueen's equipment in tow. McQueen paid for his items and thanked him. "I'll see you aground." He glanced at the name tag. "Thomas, here's my card." Thomas graciously accepted and watched as McQueen rolled out the door. Thomas knew McQueen was a dangerous car, but the allure was strong. Later that night, Thomas visited the address printed on the car. The garage had a sleek black interior, with floor leather windows to let in intimate light. He knocked on the door, and it lifted, cascading McQueen in the silky light. The moonlight captured his gleaming, fiery paint job. His decal sleeve complemented his mysterious tinted windows. Thomas wondered what secrets they hid. "You came," said McQueen, his soft, baritone voice sweeping Thomas off his feet. "Or should I say, I'll make you come." He ardently seized Thomas by the pilot and shifted into reverse, drawing him into the deeply lit garage. He still had not found the chance to speak. Glancing around, he noticed the extensive collection of sex memorabilia. Everything from dildos to intricate bondage ropes and collars. "You should know, vanilla relationships aren't my type. I like mine hot and tight, like a bag of flaming hot Cheetos." Thomas responded, I understand." McQueen bit his lips salaciously. "Thomas, as your dominant, You shall obey my every word. You are a slave to me, to torture and fuck until my oil bubbles. Only speak to me when you're spoken to. Can we agree that the safe word is mercy? Thomas nodded, glancing down sheepishly. He was ready to embrace McQueen's tasteful kinks and his role as the submissive partner. His musk alone was the most potent aphrodisiac Thomas had ever encountered. Do you trust me? McQueen asked seductively, his eyes dancing playfully. Letting out a warm breath of air, Thomas surrendered his control, simultaneously liberating himself. Yes, anything for you. Thomas watched him hesitantly as he allowed McQueen to fasten him to the arm spreader suspended from the wall. McQueen rubbed the blindfold across his bumper teasingly before tying it around Thomas's eyes. The sensory deprivation heightened his other senses, and he felt more receptive to the touch of the soft feather encircling his wheels and drifting across his axles. He trembled ever so slightly, arching against his restraints. You've been a dirty whore, Thomas, McQueen growled. An unusual energy surged through Thomas's engine. McQueen outlined his figure with a riding crop before smacking Thomas. The way he blurs the lines between pleasure and pain makes him one and the same, Thomas thought to himself. He continued whipping Thomas several more times, alternating between the feather and the riding crop, and with a slight uptick in force with each new cycle. McQueen was exploring Thomas's limits, familiarizing himself with the working parts of the demure tank engine. Thomas let out a soft moan as McQueen rubbed him first on the buffers, then on the chassis. He knew what he was doing. Those tires had a superior tread that was ideal for massaging anyone into submission. Harder, please, Thomas whispered. He observed McQueen's broad figure flex through the blindfold. I need you to beg. Please, Thomas said, tears welling in his eyes. Make love to me. I don't care how much it hurts. I beg you. Without warning, McQueen thrusted his steel parts into Thomas's delicate workings. His engine roared, and exhaust clouded the room like a fine, sexy mist. His pheromones undeniably turned Thomas on like a light bulb, and Thomas felt a pulse in his boiler grow more heated and ever skilled maneuver McQueen made. He thought his wheels were going to fall apart because his bolts were rattling. Is this what you wanted, you filthy cunt? This is what it likes to feel like my bitch, he groaned, puffing hard. McQueen plunged deeper into Thomas, revving his engine and accelerating. He let out a deep groan of pleasure. They were both on the fast track to climax. McQueen gave it all that he had left to close the gap. Ka-chow! McQueen yelled, crossing the finish line. A rod of lightning buzzed through Thomas, and every gear in his body clenched. His sharp whistle blew harder than it ever had, like a tea kettle whose water was about to boil over, and a wave of relief washed over him. McQueen quickly and reluctantly undid the restraints, and the two of them collapsed next to each other. They were panting hard, exhausted, and beads of sweat raced down the contours of their skin. McQueen leaned in to kiss Thomas intimately. They both exchanged tongue and saliva for a few minutes, their pulsating hearts eventually slowing down to a relaxed beat. Thomas broke the silence. That was amazing, he grinned, stroking McQueen's hood gently. It was my pleasure, McQueen said. We should do this again. This is just the beginning. Oh, the things I could do to you. Part 2. Yeehaw. Thomas faced a rude awakening the next day when he woke up at the station. He realized that he had left his lacy, crotchless panties at McQueen's garage the night before. Steam blew from his funnel and he blushed a deep rose. You look like a horny flamingo on steroids, Thomas. What were you up to last night? Asked his best friend, Percy, with a devilish smirk. My chasis is so sore, he uttered, still groggy. I was with a kinky sports car. Really? Get some, Percy teased, thoroughly amused. Thomas rolled his eyes and smiled. I don't know what was better, the sex or the pillow talk after. With that remark, he parted ways with his friends and chugged on to another monotonous day at work. At the end of his shift at the sex shop, he zoomed over to McQueen's garage to retrieve his hot pink crotchless Victoria's Secret panties. Upon arriving, McQueen was flexing his tires, oblivious to the Thomas's presence. He finally looked up. Fresh sweat was glistening on his hood and his pert trunk. Hey, beautiful, you must be looking for these, he said, dangling Thomas's panties. You know, you look better without them on. McQueen began fingering the crotchless panties. You like that, don't you? You like it when I fondle your panties like that? He inserted his tongue into the slit of the panties. Thomas couldn't take any of his mind games any longer. He just wanted McQueen deep inside him, in a way that made his boiler churn with insatiable thirst. Lust plagued his gears, making his body weak. Oh, take me now. Enslave me with your phallic ways. McQueen swiped his windshield wiper suggestively and gestured his wheels towards the glitter-clad spanking horse of pain. Thomas gingerly straddled the horse while McQueen tightened the restraints around his wheels. McQueen snatched a cowboy hat from the wall, adorned it, then equipped himself with a sturdy whip. Without hesitation, he cracked it and slapped Thomas's rear. Oh, Daddy McQueen, hit me harder. McQueen revved his engine hard. Between stifled moans and gasps for air, Thomas endured lashings that seared his ass and genitals like a crispy strip of KFC. You're my bitch now, he remarked, panting. After playfully nibbling Thomas's chasis, he squirted lubricant and massaged him tenderly. Hold still, McQueen demanded as he pressed his bumper against Thomas's rear, using gentle thrusts at first. McQueen gained momentum until he had escalated beyond what most cars were capable of. He was ramming into Thomas so hard that the spanking horse shook violently beneath them. You're so tight, Thomas. Yeah, I'm gonna fuck you until your coupling rods fall off, he groaned, accelerating his speed despite his overheated engine. Exhaust blew from his fender. Yeehaw, you little cunt. I'm the king of the Wild West, oh yeah, he exclaimed. Thomas felt like a yo-yo jerking back and forth against McQueen's extraordinarily impressive, ineffable length. He felt as though he was being ripped apart from the inside out by the sexual energy that was consuming him. His whistle blew loudly in release. Ugh, baby! Ka-chow! Ka-chow! At last, he erupted, oiling all over Thomas, who eagerly caught it in his mouth being full of McQueen's oils, McQueen's eyes being crossed as he let out a deep moan. He swished his tongue around in Thomas's mouth, the fluid sloshing around and drenching them both. McQueen's bulge retreated as the two French kissed passionately, their sealed, full-bodied lips creating a vacuum that only drew them closer. That was... wow, Thomas finished, grinning. He glanced at his partner, a sex god, feeling so incapacitated and powerless that there was no one else he'd be willing to risk anything for. McQueen was ecstasy, a tangible fantasy, and Thomas was hooked. One taste and he could never go back. Sex would never be the same. Part 3. Behind the scene. Lights flashing, music blaring, drunks trembling to the floor, cars stripping, a collection all too familiar to those who frequent clubs. But Thomas was not one of those people. Riddled with nerves, he bobbed his straw up and down in his Capri Sun pouch. McQueen had asked him to rendezvous there 15 minutes ago, and he still hadn't shown up. Maybe he doesn't want to be seen in public with me, Thomas said to himself. But sure enough, his dubious worries were dismissed as McQueen showed up, as dazzling as ever. He had a few ladies on either side of him, who showered him with affection. Keeping his jealousy to himself, Thomas approached McQueen and invited him to the bar. "Thank you for the escort, ladies," McQueen laughed, prompting the bright cars to giggle and swoon. They left to find their own table, so McQueen joined Thomas at the bar. I'll have tequila," Thomas told the bartender, who started preparing his drink. They sat in silence for several minutes, the vibrant club music pounding in their ears. "Why are you so late? My juice pouch is lukewarm," Thomas complained, pouting. McQueen stared forward fixedly and blinked. "Traffic was pretty rough. You know how it is." "Actually, I don't. You're the fastest race car around. Traffic could never faze you." Thomas stopped, realizing he was ignoring him. "What is wrong with you? Could you at least look at me?" McQueen gripped his tequila shot and quickly imbibed it. Then he dragged Thomas to the back room, which was primarily dark. Only some of the erratic lights trickled through the breaks in the bearded curtains. He immediately pinned Thomas to the wall and engaged his lips vehemently. They kissed each other, McQueen gently biting Thomas's bottom lip as he migrated down south, his engine purring excitedly. Oh, McQueen," Thomas uttered, his breath heavy from the steamy atmosphere. He gently nudged McQueen away. "Wait, what is it?" McQueen asked, trying to conceal his disappointment. "Out there, why did you ignore me? Are you ashamed of me? Are you afraid of what other people will think?" he whispered nervously. "No, of course not, babe. It's just that I'm hesitant about going public. Not because of you, but because of what it would mean for us. Once we define our relationship, it means I could lose you." "Oh, Daddy, my provocative vehicular eye candy, my saucy sexual stud. I never dream of leaving you," Thomas assured, overcome with emotion. "Your motor is the only thing that ever turned me on." "Is that so?" McQueen teased, swiftly pulling down Thomas's Dolce & Gabbana G-string. "Well, in that case, let's celebrate with some overdue fornication." McQueen abruptly hoisted Thomas against the wall and began planting kisses from Thomas's neck to his navel, his teeth nicking Thomas's skin. Thomas expressed a moan, savoring the pain in conjunction with the throbbing of his genitalia. McQueen proceeded to plunge his member into Thomas, filling his carnal void. Revving his engine, McQueen clasped Thomas's with his tire and thrust quickly in smooth succession, causing Thomas to vibrate. Thomas clenched his ass cheeks in an effort to suppress an earth-shattering exultation. "Oh yes, bitch," McQueen said, through laborious breaths. "I'm gonna make you come like no other train in Tidmouth sheds has ever come before." "Yes, I beg you to fuck me harder, yes." Thomas could feel the brink imprinting against his body as McQueen rushed his length in rhythmically. McQueen growled loudly in response to the blossoming titillation. "Almost there, babe. I can feel it inside me. Ka-chow, ka-chow." He oiled all over Thomas's front, the fluid glistening with its black sheen. He quivered violently as the orgasm possessed his body, and the earth crashed down around him. Thomas let out a high-pitched whistle and a voluptuous cloud of steam as he crossed the finish line. McQueen gradually lowered Thomas's body to the ground, but his mind remained elevated in the clouds. "Hey, Thomas," McQueen asked affectionately, brushing his tire against Thomas's face. "Yeah, Lightning? Let's go show the world who we are." Part 4. Boys Meet World. Proudly standing at each other's sides, McQueen and Thomas emerged from the shadows of the back room, their field of vision inundated with flashing cameras, and the incessant click of the shutters overpowered the music playing on the stereo. Black paparazzi cars swarmed the couple from every possible angle. Being the crowd pleaser he was, McQueen flashed a wide grin for the cameras, resulting in several enthusiastic cheers. "After you, Thomas." He gestured towards the seats he had chosen before. On their way, his eyes shamelessly drifted to Thomas's thick ass. They resumed their places and gazed into the map of each other's eyes, while sipping their recently topped-off drinks. All eyes were fixated on them, both eager and curious to observe the next development. Thomas pinched his lips between his teeth, a nervous habit of his. He wasn't accustomed to being in the spotlight and was unsure of how to behave, so he looked to his dominant counterpart for direction. He mouthed, "Lightning, what should I do? They're going to figure out sooner or later." "So let them, babe. We're ready," he mouthed back with an air of confidence and charm. Then, he slammed a tire on the counter and leaned in, his alcohol-laced breath making Thomas's supple lips tingle with excitement. Thomas arched his body into McQueen's firm chest, and he responded by plunging his tongue down Thomas's throat. The paparazzi went wild, the screams and white bursts of light only adding to the chaos and sensation. But with McQueen embracing him in his arms, Thomas felt as though he was the only train in the room, lost in the passionate kiss. The energy of the room seemed to pale in comparison. He found himself in McQueen. Now their secret was out, but he knew everything was going to be okay. After they finished, breathless, they made a dash for the exit, quickly shaking off the crowds. Celebration sex was a mutual must to conclude the night, and neither of them were willing to deny that drive. Upon backing into McQueen's garage again and activating the switch to shut the doors, McQueen pounced on Thomas and forcefully pried his lips open with his tongue, locking into the kiss. They consumed each other, robbing each other of lips, and gasped in a heated tug-of-war. Babe," he panted as McQueen traveled south, his teeth grazing Thomas. He couldn't care less about the conglomerate of hickeys he would wake up to tomorrow. With every sharp bite came a contradiction, a soft kiss, fleeting like the flutter of a butterfly's wings. He could sense McQueen's erect bulge against his chassis. McQueen reached his opening and paused for a moment, extracting a silk tie from under his hood, then hastily tying around Thomas's neck. "I want to see where the Lord split you, dirty slut," he huffed, making Thomas whisper with anticipation, his workings throbbing heavily. Yes, please," Thomas stuttered. McQueen hooked onto his scant panties and tore them off so slowly that it was almost torture. With one tire gripping the tie taut and the others pinning Thomas to the concrete floor, he penetrated him with all his might. Revving his engine loudly, he aggressively thrust his impressive length, drawing the necktie closer. He began to asphyxiate Thomas. He felt dizzy and lightheaded, as though his temples were stuffed with cotton. McQueen's strong figure began to bleed into the lazy yellow light emanating from above. "Daddy, harder," he begged, feeling faint. His nether regions quivered and secreted a viscous fluid. He endured the restraint as McQueen rushed inside him with consent, repetitive strokes. "God, Thomas, you're so thick and wet," he said, cupping Thomas's ass cheeks. He built up more speed as he pounded into Thomas's bits. Eureka! The tingles in his abdomen signaled Thomas that he was about to climax. Steam rushed out of his smokestack and he tightened around his partner, who, in return, growled and grinded harder. You're so tight. I think I'm gonna... ka-chow! He cried, spraying oil all over Thomas's body as he collapsed beside him. Thomas giggled as he slowly swallowed some of the warm oil. with McQueen's temptation always ended in triumph. The way their bodies intermingled through the sweat, the pain, and the pleasure was the most conflicting dynamic in the world. So innocent and pure, yet so dirty and raw. But the balance is what kept them in motion. The balance between the battle and the paradise. Nothing could ever drive them apart, neither the paparazzi, nor the nature of their indulgence, nor the taboo of a relationship between a car and a train. McQueen leaned in close and whispered in Thomas's ear, "I love you." The end.